Hi guys, I hope everyone's well. I want to do some videos today on some things that are slightly different to what I've put out before. And I'm going to start talking a little bit more about my own drug use and to try to be a little bit more informative to help educate you about the decisions you're going to make in reference to what you potentially might use. So obviously everything that I'm going to talk about is completely hypothetical. And I'm talking about what I hypothetically ran for my first cycle. Of late, I get a lot of emails and questions from guys that are considering starting their first course of anabolic steroids, and they're confused with what to start with. Reason being that they're possibly surrounded by guys in gyms that are using more than they should be, and then it's kind of confusing them to think, well, surely I should be kind of using the same thing as them because I'm kind of online with them physique-wise. But what you have to remember is that most people you'll see in the gym are probably over-relying on anabolic steroids, and that they're not fully maximising their potential by ensuring that their diet and their training is where it needs to be to get the most out of what they're doing. And when people use things like that, the only way for them to improve is then to take more anabolic steroids, because they're not actually paying attention to the other aspects that are going to contribute to progressing their physique. So let's take the scenario in which your training and your diet is exactly where it needs to be. Before you consider taking steroids, this is paramount, because as I said, you're simply not going to make the progress that you could. So by ensuring that your diet and your training is where it needs to be, that's going to maximize progress more than anything. So completely max out your growing naturally through really good diet, really good training. This could take you 2 or 3 years to do that. It could even take longer. It depends how hard you train. But in the first year, naturally, you can gain a good ton of muscle, that it slows down quite quickly. And then it'll get to the stage where you've kind of reached your natural limit. I think most people I know, myself included, probably didn't max out their natural limit because we just got a bit impatient. That's just the truth of it. But try to max that out if you can before you take steroids. Now, again, the other source of information that people are using are online forums, which largely are good, but then there is some misinformation and again, probably dosages being chucked around that confuse people. And again, for the third thing, you could then even be taking advice from advanced bodybuilders by simply asking them what they use, which is a poor thing to ask them. If people ask me, what do I use? Now, that's completely irrelevant to them because they are not walking around at the muscle mass I have. So the question they should be asking me is, what did I use the first cycle that I ran? And that's what I'm going to answer now. So for my first cycle, I used 400 milligrams of testosterone a week. Now, it doesn't matter what testosterone ester you use, be it propionate, cypionate, enanthate. The ester is just an ester. It simply contributes to the controlled release of the drug. So testosterone is testosterone. You'll hear some people say test prop holds less water. That may or may not be the case, but the realism is that it's so minuscule that you don't need to overthink this. Considering this is going to be your first cycle, I consider enanthate or cypionate a better option because you're going to be injecting less frequently. Propionate means that you have to inject every day or every other day to ensure stable blood levels, and that is hassle, especially for someone that hasn't injected before. The least amount of times you have to inject, the less chance you've got of screwing up an injection and possibly getting an infection. You have to remember, every time you go through that process, you're potentially opening up your body to an infection because you're introducing a foreign substance into your body. And if the drugs haven't been made as efficiently as you'd hope, and they're not as sterile as they should or could be, then you can get quite poorly. And I think most people that have used steroids for long enough have had adverse reactions to injections, potentially had abscesses and whatnot. So cutting down the number of injections that you do a week is ideal. So using a longer ester will do that. Now, secondly, avoid things that are high milligram per mil. So you'll see a lot of drugs that might be touted at 400 milligrams per mil or 500 milligrams per mil. I saw something the other day that was like 800 milligrams per mil. Ignore all those things, they're rubbish. They will never have that in them. The most you want to be buying is things that are 200 or 250 milligrams per mil. If you can buy a 200 milligram per mil cypionate or enanthate, that's perfect, because then you just do 2 mil a week. Now, to keep that kind of drug stable, you would do 1 ml shots on, say, a Monday and a Thursday. This keeps it really simple. This is what I did on my first cycle. Did 1 ml on a Monday, 1 ml on a Thursday. Now, additionally to that, depending on how you react estrogenically, you may need something to just help control side effects. For my first cycle, I didn't use anything because I didn't get any side effects whatsoever. I didn't show any signs of gyno. I didn't show any signs of water retention. So for me, it simply wasn't an issue. However, some people still will be extremely sensitive to 400 milligrams. If that's the case, then you need to look into ancillary products to make sure that your estrogen levels don't get too far out of range, because that's not ideal. That's going to start to cause you issues. For the large majority, I think tamoxifen will suffice, as this will just ensure that estrogen isn't binding at the receptor site. So tamoxifen as well is going to have less impact on your lipid profile compared to an aromatase inhibitor such as Arimidex or aromasin, which are then going to cause decline in your HDL and elevations of your LDL, which isn't ideal. So if we can avoid aromatase inhibitors, that's great. And at 400 milligrams per 400 milligrams per week, you should be fine not to use one. If you do feel that you've gained a ton of water weight, then introducing half an Arimidex twice a week, again, on those days that you take your injections, should be absolutely fine to control your estrogen. Don't even consider anything harsh like letrozole. Because what tends to happen with guys on their first cycle is if they do get slight gyno side effects, straight away they'll be typing into Google, how do I cure gyno? And a common answer will be letrozole. However, this is a really very harsh drug. It's the strongest aromatase inhibitor you can get, and it's going to really lower your estrogen levels, probably out of range, which is not good, because we do need some estrogen to effectively build muscle as it contributes to strength and recovery. It's going to be really harsh on your lipid profiles, and it's going to cause you a big estrogen rebound when you stop taking it. So letrozole, completely dismiss that idea from your mind. Tamoxifen will work absolutely great at stopping gyno. 10 milligrams a day or 20 milligrams a day is all you need. Again, I didn't have to use anything like that in my first cycle, so that went absolutely fine for me. Now, what is advisable is using HCG throughout your cycle, as this is just going to ensure that your HPTA can recover more efficiently when you do cease your cycle. So 500 IUs twice a week. Again, you can take this on the day that you inject and just wrap it all up in one go, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're taking it twice a week, that's fine. Duration of the cycle. I think you're gonna make the most out of a 12 to 16 week cycle. Anything shorter than that's probably not gonna really do much, because you can still be growing after 12 weeks. I think 16 weeks is ideal. That's how long I did for my first one, and I was still making gains up until that time, and I considered carrying on, but I thought, no, that's enough. Let's come off now and then decide what to do from there. After your first cycle, I believe you should always PCT. Don't be one of these guys that from a first cycle considers then staying on and cruising. I'm going to cover cruising and PCT in a second video, but this today just gives you my thoughts on your first cycle. Don't be tempted to add anything on top of testosterone. You don't need Dianabol, you don't need Anadrol, you certainly don't need any exotic drugs like Tren or whatnot, so don't even consider them. You can make incredible progress off of 400 milligrams a week of testosterone. And obviously this hypothetical scenario is for guys. Let's get that very clear. This certainly is not anything that females should consider. I will do some videos further on about female usage, which is a touchy subject, but one that I'm fairly experienced with. I've worked with a lot of girls now, and I can say that I'm in the position to share my thoughts on what is good and what is not good in females, but this scenario is for males in their first cycle. So if you want to ask me any questions about, more questions about what I did for my first cycle in any more detail, then please feel free. Obviously, I'm not going to advise you what to do for yours. You watch this video and then you act as you will. I'm just talking hypothetically here, so let's be very clear with that. I hope this has been useful, me sharing this information, and it clears up any doubts that you have in your mind about what you are or aren't going to do, and you make some smart decisions moving forward. So cheers guys, and I'll speak to you soon.